So when you go down to the beach in Tel Aviv today, it's very hard to believe that in the 1920s, Mayor Dizengoff, the legendary early mayor of Tel Aviv, says, "Nonsense. Jews have no interest at all in bathing in the sea. Industry is more important." That, in fact, was what Mayor Dizengoff intended to do with the beach in Tel Aviv, turned it into a beachfront area for industry. So, when is a beach more than just a beach? Is there any difference between a beach in the state of Israel and a beach in Portugal, Spain, France, anywhere else in the world? So I suggest that when you come down to the beach in Tel Aviv, there are so many fascinating issues and questions one can actually deal with down on this beach, that more than just a visit to the beach, it can become a visit to the whole question of the basis of our identity as Jewish people returning to the land of Israel and building a Jewish state. You know, in the early 1920s, Mayor Dizengoff, the legendary mayor of Tel Aviv, says right at the beginning of the 1920s, "Nonsense. Jews have no interest at all in bathing in the sea. Industry is more important." If Mayor Dizengoff had had his way, we wouldn't be able to go down to the beach and enjoy the promenade and enjoy lying on the beach, and what would have been behind us instead of the hotels we stay in would be factories. By the mid-1930s, there was a change. People realized that the beach was a huge attraction. In fact, the beach had become, as it were, the secular option to the synagogue. From the 1930s, and I would argue until today, on any Shabbat in Tel Aviv, when the weather is good, of course, there are many more people on the beach than there are in the synagogues. The word for sand, by the way, a little bit of Hebrew learning for the day, is chol. The word for the mundane or profane, the word that is as opposed to holy, that which is mundane or profane, is chol as well. Ben kodesh lechol, some of you might know the expression. So the beach really in some way has a symbolic quality to it in Tel Aviv. You know, in 1937, Shalom Asch, 1937, remember the year, Shalom Asch, famous Jewish intellectual from Warsaw, writing for a Yiddish newspaper, comes to visit the beach in Tel Aviv, and he says the following. He suggests that what every Jew wants, myself included, there are two requests from God: a place in paradise in the afterlife, and a place on Tel Aviv's beach in this world. And he notices something really interesting, and listen to what he says. On the beach, people sit and read. A respected and bespectacled German Jew reads Hebrew from a children's book. High school students do their homework. Workers with books in their hands. Entire Tel Aviv, the whole land of Israel, is going to Tel Aviv's beaches to school. Just think of what he's told us. It's 1937. A German Jew, he's very careful to point this out, a German Jew is reading Hebrew from what type of book? A children's book. He is a new immigrant. He is a refugee from Nazi Germany. The picture is obviously bigger than just the beach. High school students doing their homework. I'm not sure how much that happens on the beach today in Israel. And then, of course, this incredibly romantic image. Workers with books in their hands. We are in the process in the 1930s of becoming the people, the people that is returning to the land, to work the land, even though we have spent hundreds of years being involved in matters of the mind more than matters of the flesh. I want to teach you another word, and that word is farhesia. Just have a look in the direction that the camera is going in this open space, this paved area. And you'll see a sign above this paved area which tells us in Hebrew and with a bit of English that on Shabbat, this is a place where Israeli dancing takes place. People of all shapes and sizes, of all ages, of all abilities as dancers come and dance over here. One of the really interesting questions one faces when one returns as a Jewish people, when we return as a Jewish people to the land of Israel, what is farhesia, which means the public domain, going to look like? When we decide what happens on a beach, what will it include? And it is something to consider, not only on the beach in Tel Aviv, excuse me, but when you travel through Israel generally, when you have a look at the public domain, in what way does it reflect this new culture that has been created over here? Now the beach, of course, has, one of the things that all beaches have on it, have people very, very scantily clad. As the camera pans on the beach, you'll see people lying on the beach, people walking on the beach. We're not doing any close-ups of women wearing very little because, these days we don't want to be accused of doing something inappropriate. But there's a fascinating letter that is sent to the municipal leaders in the 1930s, which shows that even in the 1930s there were people, the people of the book, who were a little concerned about what was going on the beach. Just listen to what is written in this letter to the municipal leaders in the 1930s. The young men and women walking on the beach, dressed only in wet bathing suits, clinging to their bodies without anything to cover their nakedness or to hide the prominent mysteries of their bodies, and people who wear trousers so short that it is possible to see some of their pubic hair, or girls or women that wear a bathing suit without a robe and thus display their honor like goods wrapped in transparent paper, and only a ribbon covering, and listen to this last phrase, it's so wonderful, it's so biblical, covering the forest gorge and the bare mountains of Lebanon. Folks, when the Jewish people returned to the land of Israel, and an indignant citizen, who, by the way, is looking very closely, it's not as if he's turning his eyes because, God forbid, he cannot bear to see these naked bodies. He is clearly looking very carefully at the naked bodies. But when he sees the naked bodies, in his indignation, real or imagined indignation, what he thinks of is a biblical passage. The mountains of Lebanon spring to mind. So this is the beach in Tel Aviv. Nahum Sokolov, the Zionist leader in 1933, he writes, "In the evening I walked with others along the seashore, which is more beautiful than the French and the Italian Riviera put together. It was worth living to see this wonder. I am confident that Tel Aviv will be the only Riviera of Jews in the world." I'm not sure it worked out that way. We go to many other parts of the world, in Miami, in the French Riviera, and other places in Marbella in Spain. We'll see many, many Jewish people. But what is interesting is that when the State of Israel is created, and especially when the city of Tel Aviv comes into being, it broadens the possibilities for how Jewish people are going to spend time together. It increases the various identity possibilities that we have. So I hope you enjoyed this short little walk on the beach. Our next journey, by the way, is going to pick up another couple of elements that makes this beach once again a fascinating place to be on. I look forward to seeing you on the next of our Jewish journeys. Take care, everyone.